Hey, Pussynet, new little video, part 2 of the dressing part 1, part of the series. And on this one, we're going to talk about the actual dressings that we should use. And remember, in the first one, we were talking about a lot of misinformation or myths kind of out there. And the things we were going to talk about is the dressing that I kind of recommend for the stuff. And again, they are expensive. I mean, this is 20 bucks. So it is expensive, but can be reused and everything. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and stuff. But first, remember the first rule of dressing: not too wet, not too dry, right in the middle. If it's wet, you dry it. If it's dry, you want to bring. And again, don't want to go. So if you have, for example, here, you don't want to be here, you don't want to be there, you want to be right here. So if you're on this side, you want something that's going to bring you back here. If you're on this side, you want something that's going to bring you back over here. So this is what the dressings are for, and that's what you explain them and stuff. So the different dressings that I carry, I can compare them when you dress a wound. Basically, dress a wound like you dress outside. This is almost my new one. I should have car stickers, bumper stickers. So dress a wound like you dress yourself. So when you dress in the outdoors, you dress in layers. Your dressing should be the same. So right from the bat, let's talk about gauze. So this is basically the kit that I carry right now. This is the kit that I carry on me in the outdoors. And this is pretty much like the size of it. And pretty much I can take care of a few wounds and things like that. And for like 2 or 3 weeks, probably. And like I was saying before, we're probably going to do a chart, kind of comparison chart of how many wounds a kit can take care of. The problem with gauze would be the equivalent. I love this little shirt. I bought it when I was in Argentina. So a gauze would be just like cotton, and it is cotton most of the time. It used to be made with cotton and everything, and actually I think they're still made with some cotton. Is that just like cotton, when you wear it outside, if it gets wet, you're gonna get cold. It's terrible. It's not right. It's not the good stuff. It's hard to dry. It's just like in the outdoors. So cotton, no. So gauze, that's why it got out of my first aid kits. Does that mean that we should never use them and then in self-reliance where that's all I have? Obviously not. But this is where, for example, the advantage of this thing that we'll talk about why it is. So, like I was saying, everything that you're going to put on your jacket, on yourself, is basically you dress yourself, dress your wound like you dress yourself when you go in the outdoors. So different layers. So let's start from the inside out. So the first layer that you want on yourself is pretty much 2 layers that I'm going to talk about. And some of those, I don't make any money with those. Some of the products that people have sent me and stuff like this, but I don't make, they don't pay me to pay stuff like this. Some of the products that we'll be talking about is because of the products that I'm used to work with. They come in different variety, but some other products, like for those 2 that I'm holding right now, there's a patent right now on them, and so basically only those companies can make them. They'll make something similar like another company, but the technology that those 2 use, only them can use them because they have the patent of those dressings. So the first layer that you want on you, remember when we were talking about wounds, is that you want something that won't create the inflammatory process, and as well as will kind of absorb some of the stuff. Again, if you're wet, you want to absorb, but also if you're dry, you want to wet it. So we'll start with one that is start right away, which is called Aquacel. And basically, Aquacel is a kind of a jelly stuff, and I don't know if you can see on the right over there, this is exactly the reason. So right over there, this is exactly the reason that you want to use this. So basically, this would be your underwear. And the reason to use this is that if you have a wound that is like this, wounds will be filled. So they're a big hole inside. So basically, you have your hole in your wound like this. No matter what if you don't put anything in there, they will get filled. They'll get filled with fluid. They'll get filled with something, but they won't stay just as a hole. Something will go into that space. What this dressing does is basically what we call a filler. Basically, what it does is that when you put that in, it will go in and will take every shape that the wound has, and basically will create this bottom up filler. So if you have a wound that is kind of gapping, or if there's a pretty decent wool there, and then there's some exudate. So exudate, we'll talk about fluid. So basically that means that it's not dry, it's in the wet side. This will absorb some of it. So basically you would put it dry like this, and it would absorb it. And also there's microfibers in that dressing, and what it does basically, it absorbs also the microbes that this dressing can have. So this is the first layer that you're going to put on. If your wound, for example, if you have more road rash and it's more superficial on your wounds and things like that, you still need to put a layer before you can do other stuff. And then you would be closer to over here. So that means that, if, for example, if I put a big sponge and my dressing is now wet, it's more on the dry side, right over here. And that means that basically now, if I put a big sponge now, I'm going to end my wound even more dry. So, for example, this is another good dressing to have. And the reason that I have a long one is for that, because if you go on a bike ride or something in your road rash, this will be perfect for road rash as a first layer. So basically, if there's a hole, you put something inside the wound, but again, not gauze, because gauze will be absorbing everything. And the body won't absorb this because it stay moist and everything. It create kind of moisture. So if it's very moist environment, it will create moisture. And if it's very dry environment, then you can create moisture by adding a little bit of fluids on there. And basically, this will stay moist depending on what you put on the top again. But that will be your first layer. The other layers that, if it's a kind of superficial disc, but the beauty with this thing is that, and again, they don't recommend that stuff, but again, in the self-reliance medicine, is that you can clean this and reuse it. Again, on the same person, on the same person, not on a different person, but you can reuse that stuff. And basically, all it is, it's a little bit what people used to use called telfa. And what it is that it prevents anything to stuck on it. And the reason that I'm recommending this one a lot, so if from all the dressing I'm talking, if one that you need to buy is this one, is because now we can even improvise with this thing, because even if I have a wound that is, I don't know, sucking or whatever, and I don't have much and I have like tampons or something, if I put this between my wounds and my tampon, then that means that at least my tampon won't stuck to my wound, and I won't create this inflammatory process that we're really trying to stay away from. So at least this is one of the use of it. Road rash could be another good layer of it. Basically, what it let the skin grows under and heals itself without nothing sticking to it. So basically, I can use it as the only dressing as well. It's just like if you would go, so it would be like a t-shirt. But not a t-shirt, but as a shirt. So you would have like your underwear, and then you would have your shirt. A shirt that goes over underwear. So you can use those two products together, but it's kind of not very useful to do that. But the other part would be more like this, by himself. So either or of those. And then the other thing that I'm starting to experiment with stuff and everything. So moleskin, a lot of people's like, oh, moleskin. The problem is that when you start, if you ever use that stuff, it doesn't stick. I find it doesn't stick on the, once you start getting sweaty or everything, or even your boots have a lot of friction, it moves. That stuff sticks in, and it sticks in as, it stays in place that it was supposed with other dressing that I'll show you, but it stays in place that where it should be. and it doesn't create that friction because it's a silicone kind of base. So basically, it doesn't stick to anything. Blood doesn't stick to this, and you can remove it, clean it, put it back on the wound. So that's why. So it's beautiful to have a piece like this. It's a pretty decent wound, and as well as now you can reuse it. So that's the beauty of something like this. Then you may have a foam, and a foam is basically like a big sponge. Some of them have silver in it, and some don't. I don't carry silver in the sponge spots because there's some research now and they're kind of changing the products and stuff. But I was able to get my hands on some silvers. So basically this is it's almost like an antibiotic kind of use and stuff. But the beautiful with sponge, it's a little bit like mid-layer, so soft shell. And if you use a soft shell liver, it's kind of had some warmth to it. But the sponge, basically what it does is that if you have a lot of, so again, sorry for the light there. So basically if you're in the very wet section right over there, then it will bring it back towards the center. So if you have a lot of exudate, so if your wound is exudate a lot, then you'll have your bleed. On the exudate part, if you have a bleeding wound, you need to stop the bleeding before anything else. So when we talk about exudate, we're talking about a non-bleeding wound. We're talking about a wound that has a fluid for whatever reason. When it's not an infection, sometimes it's just regular fluid. It's just because of what it is. It kind of creates its own soup so that it can heals the products. Can heals from the, like we were saying, from the bottom down to up. And so it creates kind of a soup that's full of tons of stuff in it, and you just want to have the good stuff. And so you still need to drain it a little bit, but not to a point where it's just so dry that your wound is crusty. But you want it to bring inside, so kind of almost like a wetness to it, but not like too perfectly dry. So you want to keep it right in the middle, just like Goldilocks was talking about. So we'll stop our part of the video here, and we'll continue on our second part on dressing, but with a part 2.